Okay, so this was my pound CAD losing trade this week. Not not bad. It was only an 11 pip loss. It was kind of based off of lower time frame analysis, with just maybe like a touch of little higher time frame. If we pop out to the 1 hour chart here, I kind of saw this potential channel forming. If you draw this little trend line in there, or squeeze, I should say, and just kind of do a little rough one like that. Obviously we're kind of been in this huge like consolidation. You go out. Well, I guess kind of a downtrend when you look at the daily chart, but this was literally a 15-minute trade, 15-minute chart trade, so irrelevant. We had just had a third touch of this, potential squeeze trend line here, and we had, pretty decent kind of little buying pressure step in. It looked like, off the first initial test, and it came back up, and it came back and tested it again. Looked like it had a pretty decent little bullish move off of it, and we kind of started creating a corrective structure, I guess. Looking at it, we have an impulse move down, and then a correction, and then move on with the initial trend direction. And that's kind of what this was. And to be honest, when I saw this, I recognized that, but I thought it was going to, pop up one more time, and it did initially. All my trades, except for one, pretty much were, in profit at one time. But so this was my entry right here. That candle there, nice little, reversal type candle as well. I kind of drew in this little additional triangular structure here. We were kind of doing essentially a flat top with higher lows, on it. This was, and I got in on the third low. It also, I don't typically trade off like the 15-minute charts, but I do the same kind of typical analysis on it. You got a fib, you got a little structure level here, and then, you have that little trend line right there. So this was my entry right here. Blue line was my entry. Red line was my stop. So literally just kind of like 11 pips is what it was. Not a whole lot. It was essentially these previous lows here. And we had a nice, nearly 20 pip move off of it on my entry here. Yeah, 20 pips I got initially. So that wasn't too bad. And then it just kind of really went nowhere, and then, was just kind of back and forth between my entry point and after it stopped me out there. So this was, your typical, impulse move, correction, continue with the trend. Potentially a poor trade, but I saw, potential opportunity to take it back up to this for like a third retest of this top here. And like I said, I did anticipate this moving down further. I'm kind of a counter trend trader, I guess. you know, a lot of the trades I take are counter trend. Some of the trades I take are, you know, with trend, and those typically actually end up being my larger winners. But you know, I saw this opportunity. The risk was small. You know, I think I, you know, managed it well. I think I, you know, had a valid reason for entry. It obviously wasn't the best setup coming off a strong impulse, but you know, we had that 1 hour trend line potential squeeze happening, and I just, you know, I ended up catching it. The second test here would have been pretty good. That would have been, you know, a nice winner, 58 pips or so from that second low. I just got in at the wrong time. It was also the end of the day. You know, I think I got filled around 3 p.m., which is, you know, a dead zone. This is Eastern time. It's just kind of a dead time, not a real great time to be entering trades, because it literally typically goes sideways until you know, the Asian session, and then London. When London opens is when it really kind of kicks up. And this is the pound CAD. It's not heavily traded in Asia session, so you can see, you know, after lunch here, you know, really after the, you know, after 1 o'clock Eastern, it really just kind of dies down. You know, traded in like a, you know, just a 35 pip range here until London, and then that's when it broke out of this kind of larger 1 hour time frame. So that was that 11 pip loss. So things I could do differently is not trade not trade corrective structures I know that are probably going to be breaking down in the opposite direction that I'm trading. So that's that one. The other loser, I had 4 losing trades this week. Was, let me bring it up here, was USDCHF. This is really the only trade that really never went in my favor, really at all. Let me bring it up here. USDCHF. Is this it? Yeah. This my markup? Yeah, okay. Okay, so this as well was kind of, you know, maybe a larger version of the trade that I just went over. Strong impulse move down, and then kind of started this corrective structure here. I saw a couple things. We had this little trend line here that was broken, and then kind of, I don't know, like a fake breakout, false breakout, and then we came back above it, and we're trading in kind of a range that coincided with that trend line there. We had a channel top that potentially was forming. You know, I had these 2 points that I connected and drew it out to the third. And then we had this trend line, potential trend line. And then we had our fibs from the high to the low, which was the 78.6. And, you know, this kind of previous structure level here that I anticipated holding. And sorry, I just had to restart it from a earlier spot. I didn't get filled on this first wick up right here. Actually got filled on the London candle, or the right before the London candle, and it really just went against me from the beginning. I think the main thing I'm going to do in the future is just kind of stick to what I typically do. I if I delete this lower time frame analysis and kind of show you, so this was my entry right there, and it just pretty much blew right through my entry and right on up to my stop. I could have anticipated, if I go out to the hourly chart, I could have gotten a better trade out of this, potentially. I wouldn't have gotten filled, but we have this, that little kind of channel format, channel topper. We have potential trend line kind of forming here. That's crossing. Let me see here. Drop from here. That's a high wick. Right there. This is how I analyze and plan trades, just exactly like this. We have some little structure levels. And previous structure kind of in through here. A little level there. I wouldn't have entered here. I would have been waiting for, yeah, a couple nice little structure levels there. Nice one there. And then grab a fib. Yeah, you can see I would have missed out on this trade. This would have been my entry right here. Just missed it. But so for the future, just stick to what I typically do. I typically analyze off the 4-hour and 1-hour charts. And 2 of my 4 losers this week were based off of lower time frame analysis, like 30-minute charts, 15-minute charts. So yeah, I think that will cut out my losers. So total, let me calculate up my losers. I had 33. So 137 pips worth of losers, and I had more winners, and overall I collected I think 231 pips of profit this week, which is a pretty good week. That's nothing to sneeze at. So, and three of those trades were in profit at one time. This trade right here really never went in my favor much to do anything. So I think if I can just kind of narrow down my trades even more to more highly likely setups, like this would have been a perfect trade if we could have got a little bit higher spike up. But yeah, that's those were my losers. I had, like I said, I took 10 trades this week. 4 were losers, so that's like a 60% win rate. Just be a little bit more selective. Try and minimize my risk exposure. That UJ trade really stung. It didn't sting, it was within my risk tolerance, but 60 pips is just a little bit too much. That I don't typically like to do that. Try and minimize my risk whenever I can by tightening up my stops after low points. If I have my stop down here and then the low points established before retracement, I can kind of move that up to reduce my risk exposure even more. I think I'll start incorporating that, and still doing that. Once I hit 1-to-1 risk to reward, I'll roll my stops into profit and go from there. So looking forward to the next week and the rest of the year.